Supplements are really cutthroat. There's competitors coming in every single day. In the early days, we actually got attacked by our competitors. So I was cliff jumping in Croatia and didn't even know this could happen, but I basically jumped off the cliff and my feet hit.
Scaled the business to 8 figures within 4 years, which is pretty quick. What was some things, like tell me about the early days of the business and how you're able to scale it that quickly?
I think what's important to know is before I started this.
Welcome to the Level Me podcast, where we rise to the level of those around us. And today we have Ben Brandes, who is a very, very close friend of mine, lives almost next door to me in the Gold Coast. But separate from that, he actually runs an 8-figure e-commerce business, which predominantly sells supplements on Amazon. Ben, how are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here.
Mate, thanks for coming on. I've spoken to a few mutual friends of ours and they're like, how did you line Ben to come up on your podcast? I've asked him and he won't come on. So it's an honor, mate. Thank you.
Yes, I don't normally go on these things or share this stuff publicly, but here I am. So yeah.
Mate, you got an amazing story. And I've been lucky enough to hear bits and pieces of it. Well, pretty much the whole thing because we go on snow trips together for days. So I've heard almost everything. But I think it's really cool to walk everyone through your journey, what you've done, what you've achieved, but not only like where you are now, like the humble beginnings and like how hard it was to start and everything. But give us a little bit of a high level of the business that you've created now in terms of like, you know, I mean, predominantly you sell over in the US.
Yes. So we've been doing this business for about 10 years now. We have around 20 products and basically we have our own brand of supplements and all of our formulas are custom made for our specific products. And the reason we do that is so that we're ideally trying to create a better product than our competitors because it kind of sells the product itself then. It does make it easier to sell. We're always trying to create the best products we can. And we use a contract manufacturer in the US. So they abide by all the legal side of things to make sure it's done correctly. We just kind of say, this is our formula. You build it to our spec. They'll create it. They'll meeting all the FDA regulations in the US. And that from there, once it's ready, we'll then ship it to the Amazon warehouses. And then when we make a sale, Amazon will ship it out for us. So essentially that's how it works.
That's awesome. That's cool. How is Amazon fulfillment? Is it good? Like I've heard people run Amazon businesses before, but yeah, what's it like?
It's great in terms of scalability. It doesn't matter how many you're selling per day. As long as you have the stock there, Amazon can handle the fulfillment of it. So it's not like as the business grew, it's not like I had to go find more staff to be able to fulfill more product. Amazon already handled that. Obviously you pay them for it, but it just makes things a lot easier logistically. So that part is great. However, their fees are always increasing and some of them fees are quite ridiculous, especially like in the last 6 months as well, which we've been dealing with. But overall, can't complain. And yeah, I think Amazon has just been a great vehicle for us to grow because the traffic is already there. The conversion rates on Amazon are insane compared to a normal e-commerce store. Like we have that too, but pretty much all of our focus is going on Amazon because the conversion rates are 30+%. You just don't see that on a Shopify store. And also our conversion, not only the conversion, but we have what they call subscribe and save. So 30% of our business is actually just recurring, like people on auto bill who receive the product every month or two. So that helps keep the business very stable.
That's amazing. Do you reckon they're well aware of their high conversion rates and how they bring all the customers and that's why they charge so much?
Amazon?
Yeah.
Yes, but I think they've got the platform, they can charge what they want, and as long as people are willing to pay it, they will. Yeah. And one thing they're really stretching and is advertising. There's just more and more advertising space on Amazon now. And you look at the first page and half of it is ads. And the cost of those clicks just keep going up. So yeah, it definitely makes things trickier and more expensive. So for us at least, some keywords we've definitely dialed back. Other ones we've positioned well. When you type in a keyword, ideally we want to show up for that keyword, assuming it's related to our product.
So if you break down the whole fee structure, they're charging you ads up front. Are they charging you on per product sale?
So a really easy way to think about it is roughly whatever you're selling for, the sale price, 30% of that is fees.
Okay.
It's that split. It depends on your category, but roughly 15% like a referral fee for selling on their platform, and then the other 15% would be like the fulfillment and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because I've also heard with the fulfillment side of things, like you're allocated a spot in a warehouse, and then like say you send too much stock and they can't carry it all, they charge you like an excess fee, or if you don't have enough stock and they're running short, they charge you like a shortage fee. Like,
Yes.
Does it get crazy?
It does. That low inventory fee that you just mentioned is the one that's like really crazy to me. It's been implemented recently. So yes, if you have too much stock in there, you'll get charged over like long storage fees, which can be painful depending on the size and weight of your products. And then now they've introduced, well, if you don't have enough, then they're also going to charge you fees, and some of those fees are like quite large. So yeah, a lot of people have been kicking up a stink about that, including me. I don't know if they're actually going to go through with it. It seems like they are. They just delayed it a little bit. But we've just had to increase our inventory basically so we don't hit that threshold. We've had to increase the inventory, which means more cash flow is tied up in the business. So for a while there, our operating cash flow just had to increase to factor that in so our margins wouldn't get compressed further.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Do you sell on other platforms other than Amazon?
Pretty much just our own website and Amazon. But like I mentioned earlier, our main focus is Amazon. Like all of our ad spend is on Amazon.
And is your main website Shopify, or is it custom built? Okay.
Shopify.
Okay. What do you reckon the percentage between the two is? Like, how many sales do you reckon you would do?
It's like 99% Amazon. Like, we literally don't focus on the website at all. It's just kind of, it's probably not a bit better than that, but Amazon is where it's at. And like, I guess if we go back a little bit in the business journey, a lot of people were thinking like, all right, Amazon, it's great, but you need to diversify. You need to have your own site. You need to have other sources. And no matter what business model you're in, there's always a pro and con to every business model. However, I just felt like when I looked at how we were growing versus the effort of like trying to build out these other avenues, especially in the earlier days, it didn't make sense to focus on a Shopify site when you can just like launch another product on Amazon. We knew how to rank, we knew how to get reviews, and get the positioning, and the traffic's already there. So you can kind of gain that momentum versus spending all this time and effort trying to get a Shopify going really well. And I knew people who had done that, and they spent years trying to get their e-commerce store up and running well. And then they would just chuck some products up on Amazon and just start, as long as you can do it correctly, you get that exposure, and they were outselling their e-commerce store within months. So I just always felt like, what's going to give me the biggest leverage? And it was always just keep focusing on Amazon. And that's how we grew the way we did.
Yeah, a lot of business founders say like just focus on one pathway, like one marketing strategy, one sales funnel, one way, and just like go hard on that and just double down on learning that. Otherwise, like even though they're different, might even just be the same products, it's still different avenues, like different streams, right? So it makes sense. And you touched on something there before in terms of like not having any stuff to fulfill because you've got Amazon to handle all the process now. But what is like internally, like the hierarchy of the business you're running? How does that look?
So we keep a very lean team, and because we're able to leverage Amazon so much, it means we don't need as many roles as a normal company would. So for example, our inventory manager, he pretty much handles like all of our purchase orders for our products, sending them in, making sure they actually get there, and just keeping on top of like forecasting to make sure like we don't sell out. That's one of the biggest things that can be an issue, is like you do not want to sell out. Not as bad these days, but in the earlier days, like it would really hurt your rankings and it could be hard to recover. So our number one rule for a long time was just never sell out. But also you don't want to buy too much stock, because then you've got too much cash tied up in the business, and that can it can make it harder to grow or take profits out if that's what you want to do. And then we have customer service reps, and they kind of do various tasks, like a lot of admin tasks as well. Then we have a bookkeeper as well who helps with a lot of the payments and that kind of thing. And then it's more high level strategy and product development, which is more my wife and I.
Cool. So total team size?
It's about 7.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is lean.
Yeah.
And so your suppliers, will they handle everything? Like you send them the formula and they'll handle the approval, getting like the individual raw materials and creating the product?
Yeah, so we'll send them the label and our formula. And a lot of the times we'll work with a scientist to help come up with that formula. But once they have that, yeah, they will then go and source all the ingredients, bring it to their lab, and produce the product for us.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And I think one of the cool things that you've told me is one of your products has like 30,000 reviews on Amazon or something.
Yeah.
Do you think that's been like a really, I mean, you said you've been in the business for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's been a real like key driver for you, is just having that one really good product with really great reviews?
I mean, that's our best selling product, but that product is probably about 30% of our profit. But I think getting in early definitely helped to kind of help build the brand, have time to release those products and build up the reviews over time. Not to say that you can't do it now, but there's definitely industries that are harder to do. Even when we started, there were certain categories that had like 10,000 plus reviews already. And I was like, we can't compete in that space. So we would go after like more lower hanging fruit at the time. And yeah, now that we are more established, especially on that product, it's really hard for someone new to come into that kind of product and like compete, because it's hard to go from nothing to 30,000, well, it's 31,000 reviews. So that takes time. So I would say other people would probably need to go, it'd be better to go for more lower hanging fruit. The advantage we have now is we've kind of built up a moat. We've got those reviews, it helps. But there's still plenty of categories out there.
Yeah. So the ads would get them in, and then the reviews is kind of like the trust factor.
Yeah, it's ads or just position, like organic rankings by when someone types in a keyword and you're showing up there. As long as you can show that you've got a good product, that really helps. And yeah, over time, if you can show that you have a good conversion rate, Amazon will rank you highly. If you have a bad conversion rate, you're not going to be on that first page. You're just going to drop no matter what you do.
That's crazy. So you scaled the business to 8 figures within 4 years, which is pretty quick. What were some things, like tell me about the early days of the business and how you're able to scale it that quickly?
So I think what's important to know is before I started this, I was doing online based things for 4 years. So affiliate manager of a software company. I was doing info products. I was doing membership sites, trying a lot of different things and working like really hard, crazy hours. I was around people who I knew like who were doing well online already. So I knew it was possible. And over those 4 years, like I was working like 14-hour days every day. I didn't take a weekend off for years. I always made money enough to like go travel and do that kind of thing, but I never really got ahead. And then the problem I had was I would come back to visit family and they're like, what do you do? And it's so hard to explain like what affiliate marketing is, or like I do this digital stuff. In the end, I just ended up saying I just build websites. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I would love to be able to say like I sell this thing. It'd be so much easier to explain. So in the back of my mind, I always wanted to move into e-commerce. But the two things holding me back was, well, it's hard to get a merchant account and I don't want to deal with fulfillment. So when I found out about this business model, when I found that out, I'm like, okay, there's my two issues solved. It's time to try this. Me and my wife started the business together with pretty much all of our savings. So I think it was around $10,000 at the time. We just went all in and we worked really long hours still, didn't take a weekend off. Everyone thought we were just like, because we're overseas in Thailand, like that's where we lived during this period. Everyone just thought I was on holiday, but we were working like crazy trying to build this thing. We reinvested everything for the first 2 years. We didn't take any money out. So that helped us scale for sure, but we had to do it slowly. So because especially for an inventory-based business, you need a lot of cash. Like it's not as easy to scale without cash. And we didn't take on any debt. We didn't have any outside investors. So we were just reinvesting everything and scaling up slower in the beginning because we had less money. And then as things started growing, we're able to scale faster. But the lens we kept the whole time was just where's the leverage here? It's like launch more products on Amazon and try and keep our systems simple. And as we scaled, we had to revamp our systems like 3 times. That just happens as you grow. Like usually, like the first 7 figures, it's like you've got certain systems, and they kind of break, and then like maybe at the 5 mil mark they break again, and then 10 mil plus it's a new system. So we found that really helped over time. But yeah, we just kept focusing on the systems, the team, launching products, and marketing the products we had. And
Was there any other products before supplements?
physical products, no. It was all just digital, like information-based products or marketing stuff, completely outside of the supplement space.
And you've walked me through the journey before of you seeing other products and being like, oh, that might work, that might work, that might work. How has that journey for you gone where you've kind of, deviated a little bit, tested the waters in other products, and then like just come back to supplements?
Yeah, so supplements are really cutthroat, and there's competitors coming in every single day. So in the early days when we started to gain some traction, we actually got attacked by our competitors, and it was really frustrating. Like basically what would happen is we worked so hard to build this product, get good reviews, it's a good product, and then all of a sudden we start getting all these fake negative reviews. And not only that, they then get voted up. So when you go to the main listing, the only reviews that show on that page are all these negative ones. And so it was like really like disheartening when that happens, and you're like, how do I fix this? And we fixed it, and then the same thing would happen again, and then you fix it, and then it would happen again and again, and it just got so frustrating. I ended up like getting really annoyed at the business, and that whoever was doing it, like I would never go attack someone's business. So after like putting up with this for almost like 6 to 12 months, my wife and I thought we had a great idea, and it was, all right, let's diversify a bit here. Let's go stop doing the supplements. Like we'll keep that going, but let's try and find some other random products that we think have a good opportunity to sell well on Amazon. And most of those products are in China. So yeah, we started sourcing in China, had a sourcing agent over there. We launched like 4 products in a year. It was pretty slow for us, and none of those products did well. I ended up hating the business because I didn't like dealing with China, and like just it was quite different, and it just wasn't exciting for me. And none of those products went well anyway. So it was just like, what do we do? Like, what should we do? And we sat down with my wife, and we just thought, all right, let's just go back into the supplements. And for the next 12 months, we that's when we scaled a lot. We launched as many products as we could. And I still think back now, like, man, if I didn't take that year off to do all the China stuff, like where would we be? But yeah, there's always lessons to learn along the way, but definitely glad we kind of pivoted back to the supplements.
Yeah, you tested the water, you saw what else was out there, and now you know it works, right? So you stick to what you know best. Do you reckon it was your competitors who were leaving the bad reviews?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I'm pretty sure I know who it was, but I can't prove it, so I'm not going to say anything. But I mean, going back to the China stuff, like it didn't work for me, but there are plenty of people it works very well for. Like I have a lot of friends who sell very well sourcing various products from China. So it can definitely work, but just the ones we launched, and it just didn't work for us. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, you mentioned before you were in Thailand at the time when you were starting the business. I think you moved to Thailand when you were 21.
Yeah, so 21 years old, I managed to convince my now wife to go to Thailand. It was supposed to be a 2-month trip. Ended up being 6 months, 12 months, and we kind of never left. It became our base. So we were there for 13 years in total. And yeah, that was our base. So we would like travel around a lot from there. But yeah, Thailand, it was great for not only like the lifestyle, but there was actually a lot of expats out there that we could network with and kind of share our journey with, all like hustling. And we built up quite a good crew over there that just kind of kept us inspired, motivated. I actually shared this business model with some of my closer friends over there, and a lot of them took action, and a lot of those are multimillionaires now. Like we all kind of helped each other. I introduced this business model to a lot of people in Thailand. Like some of my friends just joke, like they say the reason this business model started in Chiang Mai where we were was because of me, like because I was talking about it. But at the end of the day, it's the people that actually took action and did it. And that's why they got the results. So Yeah.
Did you find that, like, was it working for you really well at that time? And you're kind of like telling everyone how successful it was, or was it just like an up and coming industry at that time?
So for the first 4 years over there, that was when I was like just trying all different things and not getting like making money, but never getting ahead. And I just found like when I found out about this business model, it was actually working and working really well. And I have the abundance mindset. Like I just want to share and add value. I feel like the more value I add to people, the more that comes back to me in other ways. I don't do it with expectation. But yeah, I shared this with various people, and back then it was definitely easier. Like you could literally throw up any product and it would sell. You can't do that now. You definitely have to focus more on like differentiating your product. But yeah, it was definitely different. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, do you reckon you could duplicate it again today? Like, if someone was listening to this and they're like, "Oh, Amazon must be the thing. I need to get on there." Obviously, it's not as easy as you're putting it. What would you say? Like, niche down in something, or
It's definitely harder, but the tools available now are much better than what I had when I started. Like you can actually see keyword volumes now in sales, and there's various tools you can use. Back when I started, you had to guess. Like you were just looking at Amazon Suggest and guessing. Like this looks like a big keyword. But definitely niche down. Don't try and compete against products that have too many reviews because you're just never going to catch up. And you have to really focus on creating a better product than the competitors. You can't just have like a Me Too product with a different color. Like that doesn't work.
yeah, 100%. I can imagine being in Thailand as well would have been handy to like start the business, especially if you're putting all your savings in and you're not taking anything out. Like, was the lifestyle in Thailand just cheaper, easier, less headachy?
Yeah, it was cheaper. We also had income coming in from various other things we were doing. So that was kind of how we survived, which is why we didn't need to take money out of the business. But like lifestyle's great. Things are cheap over there. That definitely enabled us to invest more in the business than having to spend it just on living expenses.
And you said you built like a good network of business-minded people over there. Did you feel at home, like comfortable, like you could run the business?
Yep. It was always felt like home. Like every time I'd come back to Australia, it just felt like I was visiting the family. Um, but I would say like a large part of my success was actually from the networks I made. Not so much just in Thailand, but also masterminds. So that's like we've spoken about this a lot. It's something I really value for various reasons. But essentially, I would travel around a lot to all these different events initially. All other people doing this exact same business model. So I'd network with some of those guys, and some of them ended up creating, like you'd learn about some other mastermind. So you'd pay like $10,000 to go to this expensive mastermind. The great thing about that is only serious people are paying $10,000 to go to a mastermind, whereas like the free ones, a lot of the people are just starting out, and it's hard to add value to those people, and it's also hard to receive value from them in terms of business because they're only just starting. They don't have the runs on the board yet. So I found that going to the masterminds really leveled me up much quicker because I was always going in there with hey, I want to share what I know to try and help all of you. This is what's working in my business. And people would share back. So any problems I had, I knew I could reach out to people. And what ended up happening from there, you've got like that version where you pay money and there's kind of like a guru who kind of shares, and then you've got all the attendees. That's one level of a mastermind. But I think the better one, which I got to, was more around like who are the people that we can all just get together. We all have to present something, share what's working in our business, and all just help each other. There's no agenda. Like we're open. A lot of people, they won't share their products or brands. That's fine, but more so the strategies around like what's working for them. And I just found like going to those, one, it inspired me, like just being around people who are like either much further ahead or similar level, experiencing the same challenges. And just that inspiration and also the learning, the techniques and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, you're still doing it today. Like you just got back from a mastermind in Thailand, funnily enough.
Yes.
Is that kind of where you're at now? Like the level that you continuously play at is just with sitting down with the best players in the industry, regardless of what product or what they're selling, just understanding their strategies and how they're approaching it?
Yeah, so the one we just did was in Thailand. It was self-led. It was people that I'd met at these masterminds. And because I was one of those people that would share, I got invited to this thing. That's kind of one of the things that happens when you put yourself out there. So yeah, this event was like, we rented like a 10-bedroom villa overlooking the ocean, and we all just split the costs. But as part of that, you have to bring like your best stuff. Like you got to present to everyone and share, and we all just kind of help each other. So yeah, it was great.
Do you have an incline of what their products are now?
For this specific one, yes,
Okay.
we're all open and shared that.
Okay.
But that's pretty rare. This is a very special group.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have this mentality of like pay to play, right? Like
Yes.
pay big dollars, doesn't matter what it is. If it gets you closer to someone or a network of people or gets you an introduction to someone, like it can pay you back 10x. So sometimes it's super worth it, but I mean, you can just message them on Facebook or something and try and get in contact, but not have that one-on-one and time together is so valuable.
Yeah, like a lot of these guys, I would never have met them if I never went to that. But I think meeting a person, you can't beat it. Like it just builds that relationship so much faster. Yes, you can message people, but if they don't know you, a lot of the times they're not really going to share the real, like how to help you. They'll just give you a very superficial answer that may not actually be that helpful. So yeah, I found like being part of these. And I think what's important as well is, and I think every entrepreneur should do this, no matter what business they're in, try and find these kind of masterminds where there are similar people to you, maybe a bit further ahead as well, all doing the same thing. Because I've been to some masterminds here in Australia, more so just to meet Aussie business owners. And a lot of those guys are in service-based business. And as cool as it was to see them, it was hard for me to get value for my business because I'm doing a completely different business. Like a lot of what they do is super helpful for other people doing a service-based business. But for ecom, it wasn't as useful. So I think by getting in the room with people that are doing what you're doing and just helping each other and seeing where it goes from there, there's magic to that. It can really help.
Yeah, I agree. We've been to some masterminds together or like just networking events together, and you meet some great people, you get some great insights, you get to meet and network with these people, and a lot of them are still our friends today, but it's hard to get a lot of value if you're working in different services or different products. I mean, the concepts are still the same and maybe marketing and sales techniques can still be the same, but because it's a different industry, they don't necessarily understand your niche or how your clients are thinking or how they operate. And so it does become a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Sure. 3 years into the business, you broke your back.
I did.
What'd you do?
So I was cliff jumping in Croatia and didn't even know this could happen, but I basically jumped off the cliff and my feet hit the water and my spine just like crushed. So I got a spinal compression fracture. Thankfully didn't need surgery, but I was laying flat in bed for 3 months and the recovery was supposed to be pretty quick, but it took me a long time. So yeah, that was a pretty rough period. My wife and I had just gotten married like 6 months before. That was actually our honeymoon. And way to test the wedding vows.
Wow.
Like she had to do everything. I could not do anything. So I was just like laying flat in bed. Every time I wanted to get up, I had to wear like this back brace. So yeah, that was 3 years into the business. And thankfully by that point, we had focused a lot on the systems. So a lot of the team could handle everything. Whereas my wife would just have to do a lot of the stuff that I was doing. Thankfully, I was able to guide her through that and it wasn't too much at the time. But yeah, that was a tough time and a big setback. And an injury like that, it really like makes you think. Like I had a lot of time to think and just lay there, especially around like how important health is. Everyone says it, but until you like almost lose it, it's like it kind of really woke me up. I'm like, I need to do something about this. But the problem is I'm stuck in bed and I literally can't get out of bed. So as much as my mind is like, you've got to focus on your health, you've got to like go improve, but I can't. So you've almost got to like trick yourself, like I'll do it later. Even though at the time you're so motivated, you literally can't.
Were you stuck in Croatia to recover or did they fly you back?
So I was there for 2 weeks. The doctor there recommended not flying for 6 weeks. The insurance company doctor overruled my doctor and basically pretty much forced us to fly back, which I'm pretty annoyed about because I feel like when I finally got back to Thailand, it was literally 3 flights. I was supposed to be business laying flat because I couldn't sit up. The first flight was like a little a little plane that I had to climb up the stairs to get into. There's a plaque that says business, and it's just a normal economy seat. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've made it this far. Thankfully, that was in like an hour flight. And then the remaining two were business. But by the time I got back, I just remember going to bed, and I was in so much pain. I didn't move for like a day. I was supposed to go to the hospital. I just couldn't. I wasn't up to it. And when I finally did make it back to the hospital in Thailand, they took the x-rays again, and they could see that I'd further damaged my back because I was pretty much forced to travel. So that was annoying. It is what it is. But yeah, it was a rough time.
How's the healthcare in Thailand?
It's great.
It's good.
It's actually better than Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just surprising.
Yeah, that's wild. How was managing the business while you had that opera? I mean, obviously you had your wife who was looking after everything, but was it like, were you stressed? Were you more focused on health now than you were on business, or did it put things in perspective? Like having that life event, did you kind of go, okay, what actually is important in life?
Yeah, I wasn't stressed. I was more just focused on trying to stay positive, which I think I did very well. And during the business, like a lot of the team were handling it. We definitely weren't like launching products or anything like that. It was more just maintain. Let's just keep this thing going, make sure there's no serious issues. And yeah, that's kind of what we did. And yeah, just very grateful that not only that we had the team to help with that and we'd structured the systems, but also just being able to even be in that position where the business can still run while you literally can't do anything. Like a lot of professions, if you break your back or whatever, it's like you can't work, your money goes to zero. Whereas, yeah, that didn't happen to us. So.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
And I think this is your words, so don't hold me to it, but I think you said you were chubby Ben at one point in time. Was breaking the back the final straw to be like, I just need to get super fit now?
That, and also my son on the way, like a couple of years later, so I knew that I wanted to have a child. And the idea of me not being able to roll around with him on the floor and like play with him was just like kind of depressing. So yeah, I've always kind of been overweight as long as I can remember. And I would always kind of get bigger and bigger, and then I'm like, oh, I've got to do something. And I'd just go on a hardcore diet like keto or like just something really strict. And I'd just end up yo-yo dieting. And it was just never good. I was always just so focused on the business. I never went to the gym, didn't focus on exercise. I didn't really eat that bad, but when you're eating too many calories and not exercising over a long period of time, it just adds up. So yeah, I remember doing keto. Like I lost 12 kilos without even exercising. I was just like doing keto, but it's not sustainable. And so I actually ended up hiring a coach who really helped me change my whole view around weight loss. So I feel like it was also an identity shift. It's like it wasn't a yo-yo diet anymore. He basically taught me that it's important. It doesn't matter what you eat. Like you can still eat the stuff you love and still lose weight. It's all about how much you eat and kind of knowing how many calories are in foods. So I lost 28 kilos in 9 months, which is crazy when you see me. People can't even imagine it. So yeah, losing that much, and it was really just, I wasn't even going to the gym during that time. I just started swimming 3 times a week to strengthen my back, and eating. I was still eating my favorite Mexican food. I was eating my ice cream, brownies and stuff, but it was more like knowing what I was putting in my body. So I started tracking calories for a while just to understand how much was in food. And then rather than having French fries, for example, I'll go, oh, I just won't eat the French fries and I'll go have an ice cream later. I would much prefer the ice cream. And just kind of learning that over time, and I've been able to keep it off, but it's also never felt like a diet. Like so many people say, oh, you're still doing your diet. I don't know what to say to that because I'm not dieting. It's like, it's an identity shift. It's kind of, I still eat the foods I love. I just choose when to eat those. I think the big thing was like a lot of people, if they eat like a cake or whatever, and they're like, oh, I've already had a cake. Now I'm just going to eat some ice cream and all this other stuff as well because the day's ruined. Whereas the big thing that my coach would talk about is it's not how many calories you have in a day. It's how many calories did that average out to over the week. And having that longer term perspective, like even if you do have a really high calorie day, that's no problem. As long as it averages out and you're still okay for the week, then go for it. So that was a big mental change as well.
Yeah, it's more of a lifestyle change, right? Like you kind of not monitor the food or count calories, but you kind of understand how densely packed certain foods are with calories and then go, is that really worth it, or would I prefer something that's my favorite? Like,
Yes.
do I need to eat the meal deal, or can I just go and get the ice cream? I'm the same when I've started counting calories recently, and I kind of understand how much is in calories. And like, you know, I used to do things like you'd have a meal for dinner, and then you'd go out and have ice cream on top, and like all together it was a lot.
Yeah.
And I still loved my ice cream and didn't want to cut it out. So now, like every now and then, maybe once a month, it's not that often, but I'm addicted to Messina here in the Gold Coast. And so like, you know, maybe one Sunday I'll just like order an entire tub of Messina, and like that's all I eat all day. Like it's unhealthy, I know, but like I can fit it within my calories, right?
Yeah, it's great. Like we were mentioning earlier that like I just came back from Thailand. I was there for 3 weeks, and I knew that I just wanted to eat all my favorite foods, guilt-free. Like I don't have guilt around like eating higher calorie foods. So it's like knowing that 2 weeks leading up to the trip, I just lowered my food intake beforehand, knowing that I was going to like eat more than normal and during that 3-week trip. And now that I'm back, it's just back into my routine. So yeah, it's all about like picking and choosing when you want to eat that. But it's
And
great.
how do you feel like it's changed your business life? Do you feel like you have more clearer thinking? Do you feel like you can analyze things better? Do you just feel like naturally more energized every day when you wake up?
Yeah, I'd say more energized, clearer thinking, and just overall like more confidence. Like I was always just self-conscious about being overweight and just didn't feel good. So
Yeah. Back to business then. In terms of, I think you've told me this before, but one of your suppliers ended up going bankrupt.
yeah.
How did you manage that? Did they just cease products instantly, or?
Yeah, so this was in the very early days, and it was kind of scary to know like this is the first supplier we ever used. A lot of our money was tied up in this, and then we find out they're going bankrupt. Like I heard of someone who lost $500,000 with this company. So thankfully, we'd actually had a problem prior to this with the company, and I actually ended up talking to I spoke to the COO, one of the co-owners of the company. And while he was resolving this issue, I was able to network with him. And I mentioned that I was in Thailand. He's like, "What? I'd love to go to Thailand. Like, come visit. I'd love to like show you around." And so he's like, "All right, how about this? If I get this issue resolved for you, you write an email to us to say like, I want you guys to come visit me so we can discuss doing some more business together. And that way I can show my other business owners like, hey, he wants me to come over and we'll do it." So that's exactly what happened. I ended up writing that email, and 2 of the owners, there was 3 of them, 2 of them flew over to see me. And that actually was a big moment for us because I was able to build a solid relationship with them. They loved the trip. Like it was so unique. They'd never been to Thailand before. And so as part of that, I built that relationship. And then maybe like 6 months after that, that's when that company went bankrupt. And it was mainly because of the other guy. But I kind of knew what was going on. And because I had that relationship, I'd met them, I'd keep in touch with them. They kind of gave me the heads up. And they ended up branching off and creating a new lab. So I ended up moving all our products with them, which was great. And as part of that, and I would never have gotten this if I didn't meet them in person and kind of hang out in Thailand. But I said to them like, look, cash flow is really tough in this business and I really want to grow it, but we just don't have the cash to do that. What can we do about this? And we ended up negotiating, getting net terms. So basically, normally you pay 50% up front of a purchase order, and then the remaining 50% is when it's ready, and then it gets shipped to the warehouse. The problem is it takes time to get to the warehouse. It takes time to sell that product. Meanwhile, your cash flow is tied up. So I said, look, if we could extend that, I'll pay the 50% up front, but I don't want to pay the remaining 50% till like as long as possible after it ships. So ideally like 30 days. And they compromised and did 22 days. But they told me, like, we've never done this for anyone. This is the first time we've ever done it. And later I found out that they did it for other people and it didn't go so well. But that allowed us to have a lot more cash flow to then reinvest more into the business and grow it faster. And that was a big moment. So yeah, by doing that networking, I not only avoided like losing money with the company that went bankrupt, but I was also able to go with their new lab and get those terms, which made a big difference in the business.
Yeah, it would have been huge. Are you still with the second?
No, they
supplier now?
they ended up selling.
Okay.
The people that acquired them ran it into the ground, unfortunately. So we have other suppliers now.
Yeah. How many times have you? Is that just 3 times that you've shifted suppliers?
We've got backups, but it's been the core of it has been 3, yeah.
And is that like a major hiccup to the entire process?
What do you mean?
Like just if you're switching suppliers, I mean, obviously you've got to send them the formulas, the branding, you got to check the quantity, the quality, the quantities, their delivery.
Yes.
Like, is it a big like process change?
Yeah, it's a big change. And there's usually like little teething issues as well. Like a lot of the time it's more around the color changes of the product. Like all of our stuff is herbal, and depending on where it was harvested and like the color can change, as these are natural ingredients. So a lot of the times customers don't understand that. They're like, why is it this color and this one? And now all of a sudden it's lighter. What happened? You changed the formula. And we've just got to reassure them that no, the formula's still the same, and explain that
Just a different
colours can
pigment
change.
of this raw material or something.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. So I think you visited over 50 countries.
Yeah.
Where's your favorite place?
It's really hard to answer. I kind of lump it more into experiences. Like I'm big on experiences. And the reason I've traveled to so many countries was a lot around these masterminds. I was like, all right, there's a mastermind in the US. Let's travel around there. Or there's an event in Europe. Let's go do a Europe tour, like on either before or after. So we kind of built it up that way. But in terms of the favorite place, I don't really have one, but I do have like some places I really did enjoy. Like New Zealand, love New Zealand. It's a beautiful place. I think it's quite underrated, especially like most Aussies kind of like, New Zealand, but it's amazing.
Those Kiwis.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the photos now and think, I remember taking that photo thinking this photo does not do it justice. And now when I look at that photo, I'm like, wow, it's so beautiful. So yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, a lot of Asia. I love Thailand. I liked Bali a lot earlier. I think it's a bit too busy now. I think I really enjoyed Egypt, just the history and stuff like that. I wouldn't want to spend a long time there, but I enjoyed that. And then safaris as well. That was a great experience. I think the biggest, most challenging trip we've ever done was South America. This was well before we started the e-commerce business. And my wife and I were backpacked around South America for 2 months without speaking any Spanish. And back then there was no like translation apps, and it was a really challenging, we were out of our comfort zone so much. I don't think we've grown more on any other trip than that one. And that's what made it like one of the more memorable trips. Like it was such an amazing experience. Like not only beautiful places to see, but those super challenging situations where you just want to crawl up and cry. It's just like, I don't know what to do, but you can't do that. You have to push through and get through it. And that kind of builds your confidence. And yeah, it was a very eye-opening trip, that one.
Yeah, it would have been like throwing yourself in a different situation where you can't speak the language and not knowing where you are, or like earlier where you didn't have translation apps. It would have been insane. Have you lived anywhere else?
I spent quite a bit of time in New Zealand, about 6 months in New Zealand. And most of the time it'd just be like month-long trips. Like I'd spend a month in Japan, month in Bali, or 2 months in Bali. Like I used to travel fast a lot, and I just found it too exhausting. So I preferred slow travel where I'd stay somewhere for like a month. But yeah, the base was pretty much Thailand, and then just traveling around like 4 to 6 months a year, various things. But yeah, now I'm back in Australia. So.
And what brought you back?
All of our family are here, and now that I have a son and he's got cousins, it's like it felt like the time to move back. But if I'm going to move back, I want to be near the beach, which is why we chose the Gold Coast. Very happy with that decision.
I love it. Me too. So the reason we actually met was through investing, property investing.
Yes.
And I know like you're a big advocate for it, and I know that you really love it and enjoy it because it's all we pretty much talk about outside of business. Tell me a little bit more about the investing side. Was it more of did you start investing before the business, or was it more after the business was up and running and successful?
Yeah. So originally I had no time to even think about investing. It was just like, let's just keep growing this business. And eventually, like initially you just got to reinvest everything. But after a while, it's kind of like, okay, there's some profits here, but I don't have time to even think about what to do with those. So we just kind of like kept saving up money. And eventually it just got to a point where I'm like, I really need to do something with this. So that's when we started doing various types of investments. But yeah, now like I'm focused a lot more on the investing side of things because I feel like I take risks in the business and it's important to build wealth outside of the business. Like I don't plan to sell the business, and a lot of people who even plan to sell never end up selling because either it doesn't work out or they never get what they thought they would. So I just felt like I always wanted to build the business. I love the cash flow of it. If I can do it in a less stressful way, and just kind of have that cash flow going, but have this other thing on the side, i.e. investments, that would kind of grow as well, that would make me feel a lot more comfortable and help me sleep at night. And I'm not worried and stressed about the business as much because I've got this other thing kind of being growing in the background. So that was always the focus. And as you know, it's been a big focus, especially since moving back to Australia. And yeah, just focused a lot on real estate at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good breakup. Like I started investing before I started the business, and because I thought that was the way to get ultra wealthy, and it is like it's a good store of wealth, and over time it will make you wealthy. But I've realized that generating the most wealth is through business, and you can kind of see how each category has their own risks and risk tolerances, and you can be extreme with the other. Do you allocate a certain amount to each thing? Like, do you reinvest a certain amount back into the business, or are you just trying to chuck everything back into safe investments now?
It's gone in phases. So originally it was everything back into the business. And then maybe like 5, 6 years ago, it was like, okay, let's start taking some money out here. And then now it's more around let's just take out whatever we can to invest further into. I want safe investments that'll be held for decades, because I just find like I'm not a trader. I know I'm not good at that, but I'm pretty good at just like buying something and just letting it ride. So that's why I really like the Australian real estate side of things. And now, especially that I can get debt here in Australia, now that I'm back, it kind of makes that strategy more appealing. But as long as it's done in a safe way, like I have to have the buffers. I'm always optimizing for sleep at night factor. Like if I'm going to lose sleep over anything, I don't do it. It's not worth it.
And some people who are good at business would rather take that money in and like reinvest in starting a new business or like double down in your own business or something like that.
Yeah.
Have you strategically gone like, this business is doing really well, we don't need to conquer the entire world, like let's just diversify and get in some really good foundational investments? Or have you thought about starting another business or something?
Not so much thought about starting another business, but I've definitely invested in other businesses, like startup businesses. And I just found like it sucked up a lot of time and a lot of admin, and I didn't really like it. So now I'll just like more so just give advice to people and not really try and be an investor in that sense. But yeah, now it's more just like I want that stability, something that you can physically touch. And I like ETFs a lot as well. So it's definitely a well-rounded approach, but it's more like the traditional investments. I felt like every time I tried to do a more alternative investment, something that sounded sexy and interesting, it never really went that well. So it always just kept steering me back to like the more traditional, like shares, property, some crypto as well, which is obviously risky. But yeah, I think it's well-rounded, and yeah, the big ones are the real estate side of things at the moment.
And I know you have looked and have potentially bought in the US. Have you done like, is there any comparison to like buying in other countries or investing in real estate in other countries versus Australia? Or do you just like trust and know the Australian market?
I never bought in Thailand because as a foreigner, you can't own land. And there's ways around it, but it always felt sketchy to me. I felt like you'd never actually end up getting the house longer term, like if I passed away or something like that. So I never bought there. You can buy an apartment. There are certain laws around that, but it just never really appealed to me. For the US, I think for US and Australia real estate, it really seems like the US side of things, you can be a lot more creative with the debt. It's a lot easier to transfer debt. There's no stamp duty, so you can be creative. And a lot of it's more of a cash flow play. It's a lot easier to get cash flow over there. Whereas Australian real estate, it's definitely harder to get cash flow. I see it more as a capital growth play. And those are the kind of differences I see. In terms of what I have invested in syndications over in the US. I don't own anything directly, but it's a small amount compared to what we're focused on in Australia. Like we're at the moment we have a couple of developments that we're aiming to do. One in Melbourne, one in Canberra. We have some set and forget property in Queensland, and I think the next step is probably going to be commercial.
Nice. I like it. Me too. Yeah. Well, to wrap things up, I think from like a standpoint of where you are now, obviously super successful. You've got a very lean team and obviously run a very successful business. From like a daily routine or daily habit type of thing, what does an everyday look like for you now? And is there like certain high level things or metrics that you look at or want to monitor from a business perspective that you like, as a cornerstone that you just need to focus on?
So in terms of daily structure, wake up, play with my son, get him ready for school, take him to school. My gym's like right near his school, so I'll go to the gym straight after. Sometimes go for a walk on the beach after that. Head back, I'll eat my first meal of the day, then get stuck into work, and then I'll go pick him up or my wife will, and then we'll hang out in the afternoons. Like quality family time is really important to me these days. So I've kind of structured my routine around that, having that time to spend with the family. In terms of metrics, definitely like I'm always putting out fires when they arise. But in terms of metrics, obviously like sales volumes, net profit, PPC spend, how effective those ads are, kind of the core ones we look at. And then just making sure we're staying in stock, not buying too much, not buying too little. And yeah, from a high level, those are the main metrics.
Yeah, cool. So family comes first. Family time is the most important.
Yes.
Looking after your health is obviously important as well with the gym and the beach walk, and then just focusing on what matters in the business from the time that you're working on it.
Yep.
I love it. Well, Ben, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's very secret sauce on this one because I know you haven't shared your story with too many. So
No.
I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.